All right, this is one that I promised earlier. So, before 1951, the main producers of baseball cards were Bowman and Leaf and Gowdy. And there were other players in there as well. But in 1951, a small upstart named Topps decided they wanted to make baseball cards too. And so these are packs of 1951 Topps. These are the Redbacks, as they're known. And these, as we'll see, these were designed to be able to play a game of baseball. They have players on them, and then they have results on them, like an out or a hit or a ball or a strike. And the Redbacks, there were 52 of those, and there were also 52 Bluebacks. The Redbacks are much more common, and apparently that's because a big stash of them was found, I think, in the 80s. And so the Reds are much more common. Now the sets of players do not overlap, so technically there were 108 total 104 total players on those. And I have some of these packs. Now, this is the only way you're going to be able to buy packs from legitimate packs from even in the 50s, let alone even the 60s, or even in the early 70s, for these kind of prices. And these are, if you get lucky in an auction, these can be had for around $100. Although you're probably going to pay more than that. People try to get $250 out of these. I don't think they're very successful. You can also buy graded packs, and those will be a little higher. One thing, unfortunately, because PSA changed the way they do the pricing on the grading, because these are old, these cost like $125 a pack to grade, and that makes it much less attractive to try to grade these anymore. So that was one of the things I was originally thinking about, is maybe trying to catch some of these, in auctions, and maybe submit them for grading. But I don't know whether that's going to happen or not. So what we've got, as they say, 2 in every pack for a penny. So you've got these 2 cards. Now they're small size cards. And for comparison, here is a normal Topps card. This happens to be Koufax's last card. And so you can see these are about half the size of a regular card. Now, of course, Topps would fiddle around a little bit with the exact sizes of their cards until they kind of standardized in the late 50s. So now these 4 packs have allegedly never been opened. Now, one of the things about these is the packs are not sealed. And so they may be kind of contact, attached a little bit. So it's hard to be 100% certain that a pack has not been opened. But it's, as you'll see, I've got a couple that have been opened, and they do kind of look different. So I'm pretty confident that these 4 unopened packs really are unopened. Now, these are 2 packs that I recently bought. That I didn't buy them as packs. They were sold as a wrapper and 2 cards. And I got these pretty cheap. I don't know whether I just got lucky or whether people just don't want these after they've been opened. But let's go ahead and open these up. And here's so you can see what the cards look like. So here we have 2 players here, Al Zarilla and Roy Sievers. And this was a couple years after Roy Sievers was American League Rookie of the Year. And you can see that there's a strike on Roy Sievers' card. There's a home run on Al Zarilla. Just like with the 68 Topps game cards, I'm not sure, why why a particular player got a favorable result or not. You can see the numbering, number 49 in a series of 52. And both the Redbacks and the Bluebacks are numbered from 1 to 52. They're sort of intended to be two separate decks of cards. And these are in pretty good shape. I'm inclined to believe that maybe these cards really did go with that wrapper and that somebody had opened them up. You see that at the top here you have these attachment points because that's the way the cards were made. I don't know whether now these. I'm not sure whether these are the exact attachments these two cards were attached, but that was the way these were made, and so even PSA 10 cards will have those little bits of cardboard. And the same thing at the bottom. It's a smaller. There's one attachment there. So that's one thing to keep in mind with these is that you're not going to have perfect edges. Also, they're designed with these beveled corners, so that's one of the interesting things is you don't have to worry as much about corner damage. And these are actually in pretty good shape. These cards, the kind of the commons don't necessarily go for huge amounts. I'm going to bring up look at my spreadsheet over here. It's a small enough set that it's easy enough to put together a spreadsheet with the cards. Now, Alzarilla in PSA 7, PSA 8, we're talking about $50, $60, and so that's a little bit above average, or a little bit above median, I should say. Maybe because it has home run on it, I'm not sure. And I think this is a card's in pretty good shape. It's a little off center, but I don't know. I'm not sure why this couldn't necessarily go as a 7. I really don't know. I don't have any graded cards of these to look at closely. Now the Roy Sievers, he was actually the better player, but his card is not as valuable. PSA 7 around $20, PSA 8 around $50. But certainly for what I paid for these, if I thought these were going to go as PSA 7, PSA 8, they'd actually be worth sending in. The numbers of cards that exist here, there are, almost all of these have dozens of cards that grade in PSA 8 and PSA 9. In fact, some of them in PSA 8 are over 100 cards. One thing with Alzarilla, there aren't as many PSA 9s, which may be why it's perhaps why there's a little bit of a premium for the 7s and 8s. And about half of these cards, roughly, do not have a PSA 10 in existence. And that's mostly centering issues, I would imagine. Now, in the other pack I have here that was been opened, again presuming that these cards actually were inside this wrapper originally, we've got Eddie Robinson and Ray Boone. Now, Ray Boone is the father of Bob Boone, the catcher for the Phillies and I guess the Cubs in the 70s and 80s. And the grandfather of, more recently, Aaron Boone and Brett Boone. So he's part of a significant baseball family. And then Eddie Robinson. And now these, I noticed that there's a little more damage up here, kind of, I don't know, warping or something up there where there's the connection point. And both cards have that. And I don't know exactly, whether these go together or what. They both still have the little things there at the bottom. Now, the Eddie Robinson card, that's card number 51. That one's about a $40 card in PSA 8. The Ray Boone card is also about the same. So, this is a set that if you want to collect these, even in a decent grade like a 7 or 8, you're talking about. Even an 8, you're talking about a few $1,000s, not like tens of thousands of dollars. So those are the cards that I have that I know exactly what I have, except that these packs are somewhat see-through. And it's kind of a waxy sort of paper. Now that's kind of one reason why these things kind of stick a little bit, is because of that waxiness. But they're thin enough that you can see through. And in fact, if you see these online, say on eBay, you can sometimes see well enough in the pictures they provide to see what one of the players is. Now sometimes you have a back and a back, so you don't know. This one here, this is Gus Zernial. So the Gus Zernial card is interesting because he actually started the season very briefly with the White Sox, although he'd played for the White Sox in 49 and 50, so that was kind of his default team. But he, after playing a few games, he went to the Phillies. Went to the Philadelphia Athletics, not the Phillies, the Philadelphia A's. And so the later cards of his have him actually with Philadelphia. The White Sox version, which is overall a little bit rarer, and so it can garner up close to $100 in PSA 8 and PSA 7. Now one thing, because these are not as popular as some sets, it can be hard to tell what the real going price is, because you might only have a card being sold in a particular grade, every once a year, or a long period of time. Now this one's a little harder to tell, and there aren't quite as many clues, except it's a ball, and there are red corners, which makes it hard to see the player name, and then there's a yellow, the yellow inside. Now, if one looks, I've actually tabulated what all of those different corner and center combinations are. And it turns out there aren't a lot of red corner cards. In fact, the only cards with the red corner are Sid Gordon, Ray Boone, who we've already seen, Bob Kennedy, and Monty Irvin. And so that can allow you to, you can kind of narrow things down that way. Now we can't see, it's very difficult to see any numbering on there. And so the other thing you can do is see up in the upper left, and we'll go to one of these cards, is that there are, you see certain designs of little player sketches there. And we can see right away this does not look like, this doesn't look like Ray Boone, or doesn't have the ear, doesn't have the same kind of same silhouette there. And so because we happen to have that card, we can easily rule out Ray Boone. And so that would leave Irvin, Kennedy, and Sid Gordon. But notice that it's a ball. And that eliminates Sid Gordon, Ray Boone, we've already eliminated, and Luke Easler. This means that it's Bob Kennedy. And if one looks really close, you probably won't be able to see it on camera, but you can read his name there, just barely. And if you weren't sure, you could go online and look at cards of Bob Kennedy and see if the shape, the kind of the outline of his face matches. Let me get this one right. So this one has a yellow, a yellow corner, and then it's kind of hard to tell whether that's blue or green. I think that's probably green. And in fact, you can actually see some other things. You can pick out that this is the word single up here. And if one looks really close, we see Ed and Sny. And little tiny in parentheses there is Duke. Duke Snider, his given name was Ed Snider. And so this is Duke Snider, a Hall of Famer. And in PSA 8, this is a $100+ card. And so this is one I was able to see that it was Duke Snider. Now, whether or not anybody else noticed that, I don't know. Probably. I mean, this isn't, you don't have to be Sherlock Holmes to figure this stuff out, but you do have to look at it very carefully. And so this is a candidate for maybe sometime opening this pack. And you know, if Duke Snider here is in PSA 8 condition, that's, you know, that would definitely be worth it. But of course, it's, you know, it's a little hard to say what the condition is inside. And finally, let's see, this last one. Let's see, I'm trying to remember here. Yeah, this is Eddie Robinson. And you can't, we actually already have an Eddie Robinson here. That's, you can kind of see the D and the ROB for Eddie Robinson. Also, you can make out the O and the foul ball and the BA in that. And so Eddie Robinson, and we already talked about him. So the thing about these packs, though, although I'm pretty confident these 4 packs that I have are unopened, it's kind of hard to know whether that's really true. Certainly these ones that I bought that were already opened, you can kind of tell that there's a little more, you know, I don't know, a little more creasing in these flaps than you might have with with one that wasn't open. And that makes it, you know, and especially with, you know, the high grading fee, I don't know that any of these packs would grade super high. Something in PSA 7 pack, you might be able to sell maybe for $300 or so. Maybe you can get a little more, maybe you get a little less, depending on how you do it. But at $125 grading fee and paying $100 plus for these anyway, it's not necessarily worth it to send these in for grading, especially because I don't know, you know, none of these are really, you know, super duper. They all have a little. It's very common, I've noticed, for up here to have a little bit of creasing, and I don't know why that part up there is so vulnerable. But you see, all of these have a little bit of, you know, well, all but one of these have a little bit of creasing there. This one's a little better. It's kind of crooked, and there's a little bit of a creasing there. This one might be the one that would grade the best, but I don't know. I doubt that I'll grade these, and it does beg the question of whether I should, you know, maybe I should open these. Especially the Duke Snider one. What am I gonna do? I don't know. I haven't quite figured that out. I have other projects, unfortunately, going on. I would like to maybe start more seriously collecting this set, but I can't do everything. I'm pretty deep into working on the 55 Topps and the 68 Topps Game and the 63 Fleer. And so that, you know, that's taking up the disposable income that I can spend on cards. But I still think these are really neat. And, you know, the 52 Topps set gets all the attention because it's the first, what we now consider a normal set. And it has a lot of things going for it, of course, not the least of which is the Mickey Mantle. But this is kind of a neat set. This is one where if you have any of these, you can point out to people, hey, you know, this really is Topps' first set, and so as such, and the fact that these are pretty easily available and fairly reasonably priced, I think it makes it kind of an interesting set. And I guess I kind of have an affection for these kind of game type cards as well. Okay, so that's it for this time. I hope you enjoyed this look at these 51 Topps cards. So hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you next time.